She thought I was just another quiet homeowner. So she broke into my house, clipboard in hand, claiming HOA authority. Problem was, I'm a retired sheriff, and she did it all on camera. Now she's facing prison, and I'm just getting started. You don't mess with the law on my porch. They say retirement is the beginning of peace. I say it depends on your neighbors. After 29 years in law enforcement, 12 of them as sheriff of Mojave County, I figured I'd seen everything worth seeing. Murders, meth labs, bar fights, and just enough political garbage to make me long for silence. So when I handed in my badge and bought a cozy 3-bedroom house at the edge of Willow Creek, it wasn't for the golf courses or community potlucks. It was for the quiet, the kind that doesn't ask questions, doesn't knock uninvited, and sure as hell doesn't tell you what color to paint your mailbox. The house was perfect. Brick facade, small porch, decent garage, and a backyard that opened onto a strip of rocky desert. It wasn't in the official HOA zone. That was half the reason I bought it. The property lines were clear as day in the deed. No mandatory fees, no bylaws about lawn gnomes, no committees judging whether my garbage bins had too much character. I moved in on a Monday. By Wednesday morning, I'd met her. I was drinking coffee on the porch, flipping through some local paper about a church bake sale scandal when she strutted up the sidewalk like she owned it. Woman in her mid-40s, platinum bob, stiff as a helmet, neon running shoes, and a pastel pink polo that practically screamed authority issues. She had a tablet clutched to her chest like a Bible and a name badge hanging off a lanyard that said, Karen Whitmore, President Willow Creek HOA. Good morning, she chirped, one of those smiles that doesn't touch the eyes. I'm Karen. I like to personally welcome all new homeowners. I nodded. Jack Wells, retired, quiet type. She didn't seem to hear the hint. Her eyes darted over my porch like she was running an invisible checklist. Just so you're aware, we've had some recent issues with unapproved flag displays and non-standard mailboxes. We ask all residents to maintain visual harmony. Consistency is community. That's so? I said, taking a sip of coffee. Pretty sure my property's not under the HOA. Her smile twitched. That's a common misunderstanding. Your parcel technically borders Willow Creek Phase 2. Our jurisdiction includes all adjacent visible lots. I raised an eyebrow. That sounds made up. It's in the updated community overlay map, she replied, tapping on her tablet. We sent a copy to all homes last quarter. Well, I didn't get one. And I read my deed. I'm not part of your HOA. Karen's smile slipped for a fraction of a second, just enough to confirm what I already knew. She didn't like pushback. We just want to make sure everyone feels included and accountable. Accountability's good, I said, as long as it runs both ways. She blinked, not sure if that was a threat or a sermon, then straightened her back. We'll be in touch. And with that, she turned on her heel and marched off, typing something furious into her tablet as she went. That evening, I found an envelope stuck between the storm door and the frame. Inside was a printed notice with the HOA letterhead, bold font, passive-aggressive tone. Notice of non-compliance. Violations observed. Flagpole placement exceeds community standard height. Mailbox is unapproved vintage style. Front landscaping lacks HOA-approved desert flora balance. At the bottom was a line that made me snort. Please address these concerns within 10 days to avoid fines and further escalation. I tossed it on the kitchen counter and opened a beer. My flagpole was a standard 10-footer with the stars and stripes. My mailbox was a cast-iron antique I bought at an estate sale in Phoenix, one of a kind. And the front landscaping? It was gravel and 2 stubborn sagebrush plants that had survived better than most people I'd known. By Friday, I noticed a silver SUV slowing down in front of my house, the kind of slow that's not for directions but for judgment. The same vehicle circled the block again around 7 in the evening. Saturday morning, I found a paper clipped to my trash bin. Trash bin placement reminder. Bins must be stored out of sight by sundown on collection day. That would have been cute if it weren't for the fact that collection hadn't even happened yet. I didn't respond. I didn't write angry emails or call her out. But I did do what any cop with time and instincts would. I checked my property line again. Then I mounted a motion-activated camera above the garage and another by the porch. Just in case. On Sunday evening, I spotted her again, walking briskly with that same damn tablet, stopping across the street, pretending to tie her shoe while angling her device toward my house. I leaned on the railing and gave her a little wave. She didn't wave back. Monday morning, another envelope, this one stapled. Inside, please prepare for a routine HOA inspection of exterior and interior spaces. Access requested for Thursday at 11 o'clock in the morning. No signature, just a seal that said, "Preserving excellence together." I read it twice, then laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. An interior inspection of a home not even under their jurisdiction. She had no idea what kind of man she was about to mess with. I've dealt with arrogant people before. Politicians who thought a badge made them untouchable. Drunks with something to prove. One guy even pulled a knife on me because I gave him a ticket for pissing on a church wall. But Karen had a special kind of delusion. The kind you only develop when nobody tells you no for too long. After that ridiculous notice about an interior inspection, I figured she was bluffing. I didn't respond, didn't call, didn't even acknowledge it. I had better things to do, like fixing the broken gate latch on the back fence and organizing my tools in the garage. But I did take one extra precaution. I installed a new lock on the front door. Not a smart one. Those can be hacked. Just a good old-fashioned grade 1 deadbolt with a reinforced strike plate. No way someone could accidentally wander in. Thursday rolled around. 11 a.m. came and went. No knock, no clipboard, no Karen. I thought maybe she'd finally gotten the message. I was halfway through sanding a piece of old mesquite for a porch bench when I got a motion alert on my phone. The garage camera. I pulled the feed up on the screen. There she was. Karen in full suburban commando mode. Collared shirt, HOA badge, sunglasses, and that same damn tablet. But she wasn't alone. 2 people were with her, both in matching Willow Creek polos, one of them holding what looked like a small toolkit. I paused the video, then rewound. They didn't knock, didn't even hesitate. Karen walked straight up to the door, pulled something out of her bag, a universal lockpick, the kind a maintenance crew might carry, and got to work like this was just another day in the office. 30 seconds later, the door swung open and all 3 walked inside like they had brunch reservations. I stared at the screen for a beat, then calmly pulled out my keys, locked up the tool shed, and walked to my truck. It took me less than 7 minutes to get home. I parked around the corner so they wouldn't hear me coming. Another habit I'd never quite dropped from my deputy days. I approached from the backyard, quiet and steady, avoiding the creaky board by the side gate. No sudden movements, just calm precision. Inside, I could hear voices, Karen's nasal tone echoing through the hallway. "This is clearly non-compliant. Look at that wallpaper, it's a liability." One of her minions chuckled. I heard the shutter sound of a camera. I walked in through the back door, holding my phone up with the recording already running. "Can I help you folks?" I said, stepping into the hallway. The effect was instantaneous. Karen jumped like she'd seen a ghost. Her 2 sidekicks froze, deer in headlights. She fumbled her tablet. One of them knocked over a ceramic mug that had been sitting on my hallway table. I didn't shout, didn't threaten. Just raised my other hand, showed them the badge, not current but still gold and still mine. Jack Wells, retired sheriff, current homeowner, and you three just broke about 4 laws. Karen's voice went shrill. We had every right. This property is under HOA observation. You refused to comply. Lady, I said, lowering the phone just slightly. You picked a lock and entered my home without consent. That's called unlawful entry. And guess what? Every single angle of this little visit is on camera. She turned pale. One of the others muttered something about calling their lawyer. You're gonna get a chance to do that, I said, already dialing. But first, let's get some uniforms over here. The dispatcher recognized my name and assured me officers were en route. While we waited, Karen tried every angle. From pleading, "This is all a misunderstanding," to arrogance, "You'll regret this when the board hears about it." I didn't flinch. I just kept filming. Evidence, as always, didn't lie. The officers arrived, 2 patrol cars, 1 senior deputy I'd trained myself back in the day. He gave me a look like, "Seriously?" I nodded once. Seriously. They separated everyone, took statements, reviewed the footage. I showed them the door lock, the toolkit, the timestamps. Karen kept insisting that she had authority under HOA clause something or other. The deputy just shook his head. "Ma'am, this isn't a condo board walkthrough. This is felony trespassing." They cuffed all 3. Karen tried to protest, but the officer gently turned her around and clicked the cuffs behind her back. "You'll be hearing from our attorneys," she shouted as they led her out. "This is harassment. He's lying. I was protecting the neighborhood." I just waved. As they pulled out of the driveway, the neighbors were already peeking through their blinds. One brave soul, an older man with a newspaper under his arm, gave me a little salute. I went inside, locked the door, sat down, and watched the footage again. Just to be sure. She'd crossed the line. And now she'd learn what happens when you mistake authority for actual power. You'd think having someone arrested for breaking into your house would be the end of the story, especially when that someone is a 50-something HOA president in capri pants and a superiority complex. But no, with Karen, getting hauled off in cuffs was just the first act in whatever opera of delusion she was composing. The charges came fast and firm. Unlawful entry, trespassing, invasion of privacy, abuse of authority. The DA didn't even blink. The body cam footage, my home surveillance system, the toolkit in her assistant's hands, it was all airtight. My lawyer, a bulldog of a woman named Rachel Chu, said it was one of the cleanest slam dunks she'd seen in years. But Karen didn't go quietly. She posted bail the next morning. Not 24 hours after being fingerprinted, she was back in the neighborhood like nothing happened, walking her neurotic little Pomeranian past my driveway with a smug smile and sunglasses too big for her face. She even waved. Then the letters started, official-looking envelopes from Willow Creek HOA Compliance Committee filled with nonsense about pending infractions and refusal to cooperate with community oversight. One even accused me of creating an unsafe environment for inspectors. Rachel laughed when she saw them. "They're trying to bluff you," she said. "Classic distraction tactic, but they're making it worse." The HOA tried to distance themselves. Publicly, they issued a statement. "The actions of former President Karen Whitmore do not reflect the values or procedures of Willow Creek HOA." Note the word former. They fired her from the board within 72 hours of her arrest, probably to save their own skins. But it was too late. Her stink was all over them. Turns out Karen had been operating without proper board votes for months, using her position to push through emergency directives no one else had ever seen. approving neighborhood spending on things like inspection drones and community aesthetic reports, all under her name. I filed the civil suit a week later. Invasion of privacy, emotional distress, and unlawful entry. Damages sought, $180,000. Rachel wanted to go higher, but I told her I didn't want to look greedy. I wanted to look right. The courtroom was cold, the kind of government chill that sinks into your bones even when you're on the right side of the law. Karen showed up in a cream pantsuit and crocodile tears. Her lawyer, some yuppie from Scottsdale with a watch worth more than my truck, tried to paint the whole thing as an unfortunate misunderstanding. Rachel buried him in paperwork and footage before lunch. The best moment? When the judge, a no-nonsense woman with a voice like gravel and zero time for bullshit, looked over her glasses and said, "You entered a private home without consent, without a warrant, and without legal jurisdiction. HOA membership doesn't make you law enforcement, Ms. Whitmore." Karen tried to interrupt. The judge shut her down with one raised eyebrow. After that, it was over. The court ruled in my favor. Full damages awarded. Karen was slapped with a civil judgment for $180,000. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to slide under the bench and die quietly. But the best part, the community turned. In the days after the ruling, neighbors I hadn't spoken to beyond a nod or a wave started dropping by. Mrs. Crawford from across the street brought over lemon bars and whispered that Karen once fined her $50 for having an offensive wind chime. A couple with 2 toddlers thanked me for standing up to the madness. Apparently, Karen had tried to force them to replace their playground set because it didn't match the desert aesthetic. I even got a handwritten apology from one of her former assistants, the same guy who was in my living room that day. Said he had no idea what he'd signed up for, that Karen kept telling them I was dangerous. Some rogue ex-cop with anger issues. He believed her. Until he saw the footage. HOA tried to clean up their act. Emergency elections were called, audits were ordered, but the damage was done. And yet something told me Karen wasn't finished. You don't climb down from that kind of self-built throne without trying to claw your way back up. I should have seen it coming. People like Karen don't just take the loss. They turn it into a crusade. For about a week after the judgment, things were quiet. Too quiet. I figured maybe she'd finally gotten it through that lacquered skull of hers that the law applied even to suburban tyrants. But then the signs started showing up. Literal ones. Flyers began appearing on neighborhood mailboxes. Printed in bold red ink with a grainy photo of me from who knows where, the headline screamed, "Do you feel safe with a violent man living next door?" Below it, a mess of slander. Accusations that I'd assaulted community volunteers, that I'd threatened female HOA members, that I'd exhibited paranoid and unstable behavior. One flyer was duct taped to my mailbox, another shoved under my windshield wiper at the grocery store. My phone rang twice that day, both times anonymous numbers. First call, silence. Second one, someone breathing heavy, then a whisper. "We're watching you, Sheriff." I showed it all to Rachel. She leaned back in her chair, sighed through her nose, and muttered, "She's trying to bait you. Don't bite. Let her hang herself." It escalated fast. A local Facebook group, Willow Creek Families United, suddenly blew up with posts from freshly made accounts warning parents to keep their children away from the Wells property. The comments were a mix of bots and Karen's little book club of sycophants. One woman even claimed I'd shouted profanities at a toddler for walking too close to my lawn. I don't even have a lawn, just gravel and stubborn cactus. Then came the dog. Karen had a muscular American bulldog named Zeus, 75 pounds of bad decisions and denial. I'd seen her walking him before, yanking the leash like she was dragging a body. The thing barked at leaves. She once told a neighbor it was her personal security system. One morning I walked out to grab the mail, wearing flannel pants and a coffee mug in one hand, when I heard the click of a gate and the low growl behind me. I turned. Zeus stood at the edge of my driveway, unleashed, hackles up, eyes locked on me. Then Karen's voice from the sidewalk. "Maybe next time you'll think twice before threatening women, you psychopath." And then the dog charged. Instinct kicked in. My body moved before my brain could even catch up. I dropped the mug, pivoted, reached for the spray clipped to my belt, old habit, and hit Zeus square in the face with a stream of pepper. The dog yelped, stumbled, tumbled into the gravel. I stepped between it and my front door just in case it recovered faster than I liked. "Are you insane?" I shouted. Karen standing with arms crossed, phone in hand, recording. "Oh, you're going to jail for that. You attacked my dog." I didn't say a word, just pointed at the camera above my door, then at the one above the garage, then at the teenager across the street, Noah, I think, filming with his phone from behind a hedge. Karen stormed off, dragging the dog by the collar. Zeus whimpered all the way down the street. 3 hours later, the video was online. Noah posted it to TikTok with the caption, "Karen lets dog attack ex-sheriff. Instantly regrets it." Hashtags, Karen Unleashed, Justice for Jack, HOA Hell. By nightfall, it had over 2 million views. By the next morning, 10 million. The comments were brutal. She weaponized her dog? Imagine thinking HOA rules beat the actual law. Plot twist. Dude's a retired sheriff. Game over, Karen. It hit Reddit, then Twitter, then YouTube. News outlets picked it up. Arizona retiree fends off HOA retaliation with evidence and pepper spray. CNN ran a segment. Fox News had a guest lawyer arguing HOA overreach. A local radio station made a parody song about Zeus called The Unleashed Karen K9. Karen went underground, deleted her socials. But the damage was done. HOA held an emergency meeting, this time public and ugly. Turns out the board was getting flooded with emails and calls, reporters sniffing around, residents demanding resignations. A city council member even called for oversight of abusive community structures. Meanwhile, the sheriff's department reopened the file. Assault by animal? That's a charge. Karen was brought in for questioning the next day. She tried to turn me into the villain. But the world had already seen the tape. I knew Karen wouldn't go down easy. Viral shaming, court losses, public humiliation for someone like her. That just meant it was time to dig deeper, lie harder, and hire someone expensive enough to polish a turd until it looked like a pearl. The lawyer showed up a week after the TikTok explosion. He drove a silver Mercedes with no plates, stepped out in a tailored Italian suit, and handed Rachel a neatly bound stack of papers while wearing aviators indoors. His name was Preston Langley III. Yes, to the third. And he'd clearly watched too many legal dramas. "This is a formal countersuit," he announced with all the smugness of a man who bills $900 an hour. "My client is seeking damages for defamation, emotional distress, and endangerment. Mr. Wells knowingly provoked an animal, weaponized social media against a private citizen, and has continued a pattern of harassment that jeopardizes her mental health and community standing." Rachel blinked once. "Cute," she said, flipping through the pages, "and fictional. But I'll admit, for about 5 seconds it got under my skin. I'd played it clean. Every step, every response measured, legal, documented. But Karen was playing to noise. Her story had started seeping into blogs, weird HOA Facebook groups, even one podcaster who tried to spin it as an anti-woman crusade led by armed retirees. Langley leaned hard into that. He claimed the dog never attacked, that I sprayed an emotional support animal without provocation, that I intentionally incited online harassment by not preventing the video from going viral. But then came the real kicker. He submitted updated documents that supposedly proved my house had always been under HOA jurisdiction. Old blueprints, maps, and a homeowner declaration form with my forged signature. I could have laughed, but I was too pissed. Rachel didn't even blink. "This is fraud," she said flatly, tossing the packet on the table. "You just submitted forged documents in open court." Preston smiled like it was part of the game. "We're open to a settlement." "Not a damn chance," I said. We filed a motion for forensic analysis on the paperwork. Within 48 hours, the truth came out. The maps were traced over an old survey, adjusted with Adobe Illustrator. Sloppy layers, mismatched lot numbers, and a fake seal from a land use clerk who'd retired 5 years ago. The signature? A blurry copy-paste of mine pulled from a public deed filing. They hadn't even bothered to match the ink thickness. In court, Rachel dragged it all into the light. "Your Honor," she said, "this isn't just a bad legal argument. This is a criminal act. Someone forged documents, presented them as truth, and tried to use the judicial system as a weapon of revenge." The judge didn't need convincing. Preston went pale for the first time. Karen, sitting stiffly behind him, looked like she was about to either faint or combust. The counterclaim was dismissed, with prejudice. But it didn't stop there. The judge referred the matter to the district attorney for possible charges: forgery, obstruction of justice, perjury. Preston tried to backpedal, claiming he had no knowledge of document fabrication, but Rachel ripped him apart on procedural violations: the chain of custody on the files, the metadata from the PDFs, the matching email where Karen had sent him the evidence with the subject line, "This should shut him up." That email ended up in the exhibits. And the media? Oh, they feasted. The same outlets that had been mildly cautious before, worried about bias or legal backlash, now ran full exposés. Disgraced HOA president accused of faking evidence to sue veteran sheriff. An NBC anchor said, "This might be the HOA story of the year." At this point, Rachel didn't even have to swing. Karen and her little empire were collapsing under their own weight. Neighbors started speaking up. Real statements, public ones. The HOA secretary admitted on record that Karen had pressured board members into silence. One treasurer resigned and posted a letter online titled, "I enabled a tyrant." The district opened an ethics review into HOA operations across the county. Even the mayor's office issued a memo on the growing concern of unregulated HOA enforcement. Karen tried to stay quiet, but screenshots leaked. Private messages, group chats, emails where she called me a redneck thug and a fascist in flannel. One of her minions turned, maybe out of guilt, maybe to save themselves. By the end of that month, Karen wasn't just a local problem. She was a punchline. The court date was set. No more delays, no more procedural games. The district attorney rolled all charges into one tight, brutal case: criminal trespassing, falsification of evidence, attempted fraud, assault by proxy via animal, and obstruction of justice. It read less like a legal docket and more like a career obituary. Karen showed up in a gray skirt suit, but the power stance was gone. Her jaw tight, her hair flat, eyes hollow like someone who'd been losing sleep and control for too long. Preston Langley III was nowhere to be seen. She'd replaced him with a public defender. Guess the Mercedes doesn't drive itself when you're broke and radioactive. The judge, same one who'd ruled in my civil suit, called the courtroom to order like she was already tired of the drama. No press was allowed inside this time, but you could feel their presence outside. Cameras lined the courthouse steps, reporters lurking like crows. The DA laid it all out, piece by piece, the unlawful entry backed by time-stamped footage, the forged HOA documents matched by forensic analysis. The incident with Zeus, video slowed down frame by frame, showing the unleashed dog charging while Karen stood smirking in the background. Rachel didn't even need to speak much. The prosecution had it handled. All we had to do was sit there and let the truth choke her. Then came the twist no one saw coming. Karen's defense requested a psychiatric evaluation, claimed that her actions stemmed from a deep-seated anxiety disorder exacerbated by perceived loss of control in community environments. Translation: she's not evil, she's just mentally unstable. It stalled the trial by 2 weeks. The court appointed a licensed forensic psychologist to evaluate her. I didn't say much when Rachel told me, just nodded and said, "She's not crazy. She's just addicted to power." The results came back. Diagnosis: obsessive-compulsive traits focused on control, paranoid ideation regarding authority structures, and narcissistic behavior consistent with maladaptive personality patterns. But then came the kicker. Legally sane. She knew what she was doing. She planned it. She acted with intent. When the trial resumed, there was no jury, just the judge. She read through the findings and then gave Karen the floor. Karen stood, shoulders shaking, not with emotion, with restraint. Her voice cracked as she launched into a half-confession, half-rant. "I just wanted people to follow the rules. Without structure, there's chaos. Without enforcement, there's no order. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was protecting the neighborhood." The judge listened patiently, then leaned forward, fingers steepled. "Ms. Whitmore, you violated the sanctity of someone's home. You lied. You fabricated documents. You used your position to intimidate, retaliate, and endanger. The law does not bend to your fear of losing control." Then came the sentence. 14 months in a state correctional facility. No parole eligibility for the first 10. Karen's jaw dropped. Her eyes scanned the room as if someone might stand up and object. No one did. The courtroom was silent except for the soft scribble of the clerk's pen. But it didn't end there. The court issued an additional order. Prohibited from participating in any HOA board, committee, or governance structure for 10 years. Mandatory weekly psychiatric monitoring during and after incarceration. She was cuffed on the spot. No bail, no goodbye. As they let her out, she looked over her shoulder, not at me, not at the judge, but at the door. Like she still thought this wasn't real. After the sentencing, things began to shift in Willow Creek. The HOA board was completely dissolved and rebuilt from scratch. The county appointed an external monitor for the next 2 years. A community-wide vote repealed over 30 legacy bylaws Karen had implemented on her own authority. Residents were allowed to paint their mailboxes again. Small victories, sure, but meaningful. I started getting speaking invitations. First, from the new HOA leadership, then from nearby communities. Even a local university asked me to guest lecture for their criminal justice seniors on abuse of soft power structures. The sheriff's office invited me to a ceremony. I figured it was just going to be coffee and awkward hugs. Instead, they handed me a medal for civil valor in defense of constitutional property rights. I didn't say much, just shook hands and smiled for the cameras. But when I got home, I took that medal, nailed it to the wall next to my grandfather's revolver, and poured myself a drink. Not bad for a guy who just wanted peace and quiet. A year passes fast when nobody's trying to fine you for your choice of patio chairs. Willow Creek changed, not overnight but steadily. like a cranky old truck finally getting new spark plugs. The new HOA president, Margaret Blanche, 72, former high school principal, didn't tolerate nonsense. Her motto, "If it ain't catching fire or making noise after 10 p.m., I don't care." People relaxed. Lawns grew a little messier. Kids left scooters in driveways. The world didn't collapse. Turns out freedom and community weren't mutually exclusive after all. As for me, I settled in for the retirement I'd actually planned. Started rebuilding an old Harley in the garage. Got a rescue dog, not a bulldog before you ask, named Roscoe. Half shepherd, half something else entirely, but loyal as hell. We walked the block every morning. No more slow-driving SUVs, no more clipboard-bearing cultists. Just nods, waves, and the occasional joke from the Crawfords about whether I was planning to arrest the HOA again. Then Halloween came around. Now I don't usually decorate, never cared much for fake cobwebs and plastic tombstones. But that year, the neighborhood went all in. The theme was, "Scariest thing you can imagine." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The Crawfords put up a giant papier-mâché HOA fine notice on their garage that read, "You breathe too loud, $75. The Sotos made a haunted walk-through maze called the Compliance Office, full of fake rules and animatronic Karens. And then came the kid. Must have been 11 or 12, dressed in a pink polo, tablet in one hand, leash in the other with a stuffed bulldog on wheels. Name tag said, Karen, Supreme HOA Enforcer. The costume was disturbingly accurate. He marched up to my porch like he meant business. "Sir, this porch does not meet visual standards, and your flag is distracting." I stared at him deadpan for a moment, then raised an eyebrow. "Are you authorized to be on this property, ma'am?" He stayed in character. "I have authority from the Grand Committee." "Well," I said, "that committee can kiss my flannel-covered behind." The kid cracked, started laughing so hard the stuffed bulldog fell over sideways. I gave him a full-size candy bar for effort. That's some quality trauma-based comedy right there. His mom stood at the curb, filming the whole thing with tears in her eyes from laughing. She mouthed, "Thank you." Later that night, I sat on the porch with Roscoe, sipping bourbon and watching the kids swarm between houses like happy little liabilities. The moon was fat and orange. A warm breeze carried the smell of distant barbecues. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown sender. The email subject line read, "Request for guidance. HOA abuse in our town. Can you help?" I opened it. A woman from New Mexico said her community had just ousted a president for similar behavior, that they'd seen my case online and were organizing, that people respected what I'd done. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then smiled. I didn't need a badge anymore. But maybe, just maybe, I had something better.